Hey guys, Pete here. Another episode of Mr. Robot is come and gone, and this will be my recap and review for Season 2, Episode 6. There's a lot to talk about, so let's jump right into it. The episode starts out in a standard definition sitcom starring the Alderson family, based sometime in the 90s. The whole family is together, and Mr. Robot tells us that they are going on a road trip. Elliot is having a hard time understanding what's going on, and everyone else seems to ignore his concerns. It's definitely a cool way to start the episode, and we get a return of some characters we haven't seen in for a while. Gideon, who plays a cop just to get killed all over again, and Tyrell, who plays a version of himself who happens to be tied up in the trunk. For as long as the sequence is, we don't learn that much that is actually important towards what is going on in reality. As Mr. Robot feeds sitcom-style responses to Elliot each time he expresses his concerns about where they are and what's going on, we catch clues in Darlene's Game Boy and in the rearview mirror of the car of what's going on in the real world. It turns out that this is happening concurrently with the massive beating Ray's goons are laying on Elliot from the end of the last episode. There are a lot of funny parts, including Elliot's mom knocking out Darlene, a cameo from Alf who eventually runs over Gideon on the highway. The family laughs about the fact that Mr. Robot is dying of cancer as he coughs up blood, and generally a bunch of cheesy quips with a laugh track to punctuate all the drama. Oh, and the theme song is pretty good too. If you didn't notice the words, go back and check them out. It's worth a re-listen for sure. At the end of the sequence, we arrive at the hospital where Mr. Robot tells Elliot he was just trying to help him put it all in the rear view as painfully as possible. He says that after the beating they gave him, at least they brought him to the hospital. He sends Elliot back to the real world and says, "Now the worst is behind you." Elliot wakes up wheezing and appears to be in a lot of pain. He looks worse for the wear, and the hospital room is definitely odd looking. We see Lone Star is there, and Ray tells Elliot a story about Maxine, his dog, as soon as he wakes up. The story boils down to how Maxine was the type of dog that lived as her own operator, and that he thought maybe she never knew she belonged to someone. We find out she got heartworms and in her sickness needed Ray to feed her and give her the medicine. He says for the first time in her life she realized that she continued to breathe because someone allowed it, that she had a master. The realization is what killed her, he says, before the parasites got the chance. The obvious implication here is that Elliot now belongs to Ray and his criminal organization. He leaves Elliot to rest, but not before telling him that they have big days ahead and work to do. At this point, Ray's early interactions with Elliot seem like nothing more than manipulation. He learned his weaknesses and used them to gain his trust. If you think back to how things went down, it's hard to imagine that there is any real connection between the two. I think the scene where Ray is with RT in his house, his family's terrified they're watching, is a good indication. His spiel about him being more of a positive reinforcement guy as opposed to Lone Star's way of dealing with things. It seems clear that Elliot is trapped with Ray at this point, and I would guess that it will take extreme measures for him to break free. As we cut away from the hospital, we hear Alf on the TV across the hall saying, "Democracy is dead." Back at the squat in Madam Executioner's place, we find Trenton and Darlene watching a news clip. We find out that the attack Dom was involved with in China is topping the news, and that this is going to make the hacking the FBI a lot harder since they'll be on high alert. Darlene still thinks they can do it and wants to move forward with using Angela to plant the femtocell at E Corp. She's having trouble learning how to implement the scripts necessary though, and they don't have much time because we learn that she saw an inter-office email saying that the FBI was leaving E Corp the next day. Mobley's there trying to teach her, and Angela says she'll be able to do it. When he asks Darlene about the femtocell, she says that Cisco's got it handled and that he'll be there, so don't worry about it. Cisco is at the library, and an unknown Asian man comes in and throws him a backpack with what he has been waiting for. He asks him what he did to the femtocell, and the guy puts him in his place. Two guys wearing dark army masks come up and hold him while the other guy tells him that he's a foot soldier, and foot soldiers only do one thing: they follow orders. They definitely don't ask questions. He takes out a hypodermic needle that, as far as I can tell, doesn't have anything in it. He just sticks the needle into Cisco's finger and then breaks it off and walks away. I think this is just a painful reminder of who's in charge, but if you have any other ideas of what is happening here, let me know in the comments. To me, it just looked like he wanted to do something super painful to him, and it looked like it worked. Dom is in her boss's office, and he tells her that they are recommending that she take 4 weeks off for psych leave after the shootout in China. She argues with him that, she can't leave the investigation for a month and refuses refuses to do so. Their exchange is pretty telling, and we find out how the shootout ended. Dom points out that they went to investigate the hack, and this whole thing was just a tactic designed to get them to leave. Her interpretation is spot on, and it's largely based on the fact that the shooters were there to cause a disruption, and more importantly, to leave nothing behind. We saw how quickly the first shooter that she had clipped decided to shoot himself rather than continuing to shoot at her. We also learned that the second shooter did the same, even though he had her pinned down. That we saw that at the end of the episode, and he could have easily took her out. It looked like, anyways. It was a suicide mission that achieved its goal. It got the FBI out of China, and with no clues left behind, made it hard to link the whole thing to the Dark Army, and easy to pin on someone else. In this case, they mention a lower level separatist group. Philip Price is in his office on the phone with a congressman or someone like that, and the guy tells him that he can't push through a bailout. Price insists that this needs to happen and tells him to get it done. The person on the other end of the phone doesn't sound hopeful in light of the events that just went down in Beijing, and Price reminds him that if it doesn't happen, the country will go bankrupt. His assistant walks in to tell him that he can't get Minister Zheng. Price says, of course, basically calls White Rose a cocksucker and insists that his assistant keep trying until he gets through. He then asks him where his car is, and the assistant tells him that the car can't get through because of all the protesters outside. At this, he tells him to call the police and have them send over as many people that are as necessary to get him out of the building, basically. Trenton and Mobley are watching a rattled Angela work on her part of the plan while she starts in with the positive affirmations again. As she's working, she starts saying to herself, "My success is assured," over and over. Everything seems to be in order, and we get a tense scene when Cisco drops by to drop off the gear with a bandage on his hand. Angela immediately recognizes him as the seedy guy from season 1 and can't hide her surprise as he talks to Darlene. Darlene asks what's going on, but after a long drawn-out look, Angela says, "Nothing. I thought I recognized your friend, but I don't." Cisco never says anything at all, and Darlene lets it go after giving him a suspicious look. Dom is back at the bodega where we first met her, buying some 5-hour energies and talking to the same clerk. We catch the E-coin signs behind him again by the Bitcoin signs, and also see that there is no one else in the store besides her. We learn that the $50 a day limit on withdrawals has killed his business, and that he's going to have to close up shop. Dom tries to cheer him up, but this scene seems to be there just to point out how bad things are getting for the little guy in the days after the hack. We catch Darlene in disguise, and she uses some social engineering to get herself into a hotel room. We assume this is next to the E Corp headquarters, and she's on, the 23rd floor, which is the same floor that the FBI is working on at E Corp. Her scheme works, and she gets herself in and sets up shop. Angela is in her cubicle, and we see that she puts her real phone into the drawer at her desk and pulls out a burner that Darlene gives her a call on. She heads to the elevator to put their plan into action. She enters the 23rd floor, moves past some agents on their way to lunch, and goes right into the bathroom. And in there, she goes right into a stall. Her first attempt at running the script doesn't work, so she calls Darlene and Mobley. As she's talking to them, someone comes into the bathroom, which raises the tension. The scene has some cool, almost frantic music in the background, and the camera shots are handheld, I don't know, it's pretty exciting. I like the actual scene. When the woman who's in the bathroom goes out the door, we see a glimpse of an agent that tried to say hi to Angela on her way in, and it's pretty noticeable that he's lurking outside. Mobley tells Angela what she needs to fix, and everything starts working. As soon as she comes out of the bathroom, the agent is there waiting. Turns out he wanted to ask her out, and he isn't really trying to take no for an answer. As Darlene urges her to get rid of him, and they spoof a call from his mom that he ends up ignoring anyways, he starts to ask what is she doing on this restricted floor. She flips things around, agrees to have lunch with him, and seems to get him out of her hair as he walks off, presumably to call his mom back. This could lead to something where he realizes she didn't actually call, but then again, we might not ever see this guy again. Angela finds where she needs to set up the femtocell and follows Darlene's direction. After she's done, she tells her to wipe off her fingerprints, and she does, but I'm not exactly sure she did a good job. I might be looking too hard at it, but whenever I rewatched it, it looked like she might have missed the box in the back where she plugged in the Ethernet cable. Again, this might not be anything, and it might not matter anyways. Everything looks good at first, but as Angela's walking out, Darlene loses the signal. We see that it started to pull data from what looked like phone-related files, but the Wi-Fi connection drops out. Darlene tells her that she needs to get to a terminal to bring things back up, and Angela is not happy about it. Darlene reminds her that she needs this connection to remove the footage of Angela snooping around on a restricted floor. She tells her to get to her cubicle, and Angela takes off. She runs into some agents on her way out, which causes her to take a turn and use the stairs. At first, I didn't think much about this, but when I went back and watched again, I noticed that actually could be Dom standing right there. We go back to the hospital to Elliot, who it seems like we haven't seen forever at this point. He tells us about masters and how some people need to be controlled. I would really like to add the clip here because it's kind of a key part of the episode, but since I had so much trouble with using video clips on the Mr. Robot videos in the past, I'm just going to explain it to you. So he's basically talking about how every relationship is a power struggle. It relates back to the sitcom dream sequence in the beginning, in that he says that sometimes the best course of action is to ride shotgun and keep your eyes on the road ahead and just hope that it leads somewhere you need to go. He knows he's trapped and he doesn't have a way out, so he's going to have to bide his time until he's healed and he gets a plan. Just as he's finishing the thought, the goons come back in and abduct him once again. And I got to say, how they managed to scoop him up and carry him out of the hospital, I have no idea. Just like I had no idea how they were able to grab his screaming ass from his mom's place and beat him into like an inch of his life right outside without anyone noticing. Is something going on with this? Is there a reason the diner that he eats at and the hospital he's in have like this dingy dreamlike appearance? Is that anything more than just a way of setting the tone? I just don't know. Either way, they take him off, and from there we go back to Angela's cubicle. She has her headphones on and Darlene is giving her instructions, walking her through what she needs to do step by step. On the screen, it looks like she's 2 letters away from finishing when someone says her name. Right away, we recognize this is Dom's voice, and things are getting real. She excuses herself, telling Angela that she didn't realize she was on a call. She hates when people do that to her, and that she can wait for her to finish. The situation seems pretty dire, but of course it's a cliffhanger, and we don't find out how it ends. Elliot is dumped unceremoniously on the floor of what looks like a basement. Lone Star gives him a once-over and then leaves the room. At first, my thought was that maybe he's in the basement of the hospital, but then I noticed there's a water heater in the corner, and that made me start to wonder if this is the same room where Ray put Maxine while she was dying. He mentioned she had a water heater for a neighbor, so it could be the same one. Being dumped on the floor does not help Elliot's health, and we see he is clearly struggling. Mr. Robot comes in and basically apologizes for not explaining what was going on in the sitcom scene. We find out that all he was really trying to do was keep him from feeling the pain that was being dished out during the beating. Elliot forces himself up, grabs onto him to stay there, thanks him, and then gives him a real hug with tears in his eyes. This is basically the opposite of how he reacts the first time when Mr. Robot hugs him, right before he went into the hospital. I think it probably reflects Elliot realizing that in this situation, or situations like this, that he does actually have a use and he does actually need Mr. Robot. We end the episode with a flashback to when Elliot was still a young kid. His father has picked him up from school after what looks like a situation where he got into a fight. He's asking him a bunch of questions, and Elliot's just staying quiet. During the drive, he tells Elliot about losing his job from E Corp from leaving work too many times. When Elliot asks why he was leaving so much, he tells him that he was going to the doctor, and we realize that this is when Elliot learns about his father's cancer. He also tells him about a computer store that he's going to open, and they go on their way down there. Elliot asks if he can work there, and Mr. Robot says sure, he's got a job for him right now, and lets him know that he can name the store himself. And when they pull up, he asks him not to tell his mom about what they just talked about, and not to tell her about the fact that he has cancer. So this was all a pretty good episode, and I was happy with that. It didn't end with the multiple cliffhangers like the last episode did. We do have one, though, and for those of us that watched the trailer for the next episode, we get a little more information about what Dom's up to in Angela's cubicle, but no clear idea of what's going to happen. Do you guys think she finished typing in what Darlene told her? Do you think she got it back online? I mean, all she had to do was type the word up, like a space and the word up. And it was on the line above it, exactly the same. So, I don't know. It's inconclusive for sure because you don't hear the keyboard sounds as Dom's talking to her. So, I'm interested to see what you guys think. Elliot's in a pretty tough spot where he won't be much help, but we do know that Ray is expecting to put him back on a terminal for work, as soon as he's healthy enough to get down to business. So we are over the hump officially, and, we're in the backstretch of the season. I expect that all the characters will be getting to where they're going in the next couple of episodes. The standoff between Dom and Angela seems to show that not both of them will be able to come away from it unscathed, and Elliot and Ray's situation is pretty much a mirror image, just with some different things at stake. So something's brewing. So how do you think our new characters are going to end up in the end? I mean, like I said, they're in direct conflict with the main characters of the show. E Corp is also in a bind, but at this point, everyone else is actually feeling the pain. We have an example of the same type of situation in the real world from the financial crisis of 2008. Only here, the 5/9 hack has made it a lot harder for the government to take the taxpayers' money and bail the banks out. My guess about why this is that since F Society succeeded in destroying the backups and effectively wiping out the debt, E Corp can't collect the money from the debts, which would be their way of paying, the people back with their own money. Somebody, if if you have a little bit more of an idea of why this is such a tough spot, feel free to leave that in the comments as well. Still got no Tyrell other than him being tied up guy in the trunk, and we didn't get any Joanna at all this episode, so her story is still where it was at. One thing I noticed, I realized at the end of this episode, I was actually rooting for Dom, and that shouldn't really be the case, since her basic purpose is to take out our protagonist and all of the people that he cares about. So I'm excited for where the next episode's going to take us. And, so let me know in the comments what you guys think. What's Ray's end game? Was Tyrell really outside Joanna's apartment? And, what's going to happen when White Rose finally answers Price's call? There's a lot of stuff to think about before the next episode. And, keep in mind, I try to respond to all the comments in the first day or so after uploading the video. After that, it gets a little bit hard to keep up with it. So post away and I'll try to get back to you. Please like the video if you found it interesting. And be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm on a pretty regular schedule with Mr. Robot now, so you'll want to know whenever the new one comes out. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.